Capitalism is the system of freedom. Now, freedom has profound economic results. The production of goods and services required by human life is fundamentally the work of the mind. I already cited some of the examples of the great inventors from late 19th century America. And the mind requires freedom. The mind, the independent, creative, free-thinking mind does not function under dictatorship. The free thinkers are the first guys who end up burned at the stake, beheaded, gassed in the concentration camps, or sent to slave labor in Gulag. This is why, as the capitalist nations, first Great Britain, then the United States, then the Asian tigers, became the most technologically and industrially advanced nations of history. Capitalism is the system of prosperity. Now, there are three things. I mean, here's the choice. You know, it's stark. We can have freedom and prosperity, or we can have statism and poverty. Well, that's a tough choice. And when people all over the world can leave, and when they can get in, when the INS doesn't keep them out, of course, this is overwhelmingly their chosen destination, understandably. If I'd been born in Pakistan or Zimbabwe or Guatemala or someplace like that, I'd be trying to swim here too. Whenever I feel sorry for myself, it's pretty much every day, neurotic Jewish intellectual, I keep reminding myself, birth is the luck of the draw, right? It's the luck of the draw. I could just as easily have been born in Afghanistan as in the United States. And I could just as easily have been born in, Zimbabwe as in America. It's an enormous piece of good fortune to have been born here, rather than in, some repressed, politically repressed, economically destitute third world nation. My ex-wife and I adopted a little girl from China, just turned 7. Could have been born in China too. If I was born in China, it would have been the 1950s when Mao was in power. What are the odds that I'd still be alive today? Not good. All right. Now, there are 3 things that every one of us can do to help spread freedom, individual rights, and prosperity around the globe in ascending order of importance. 1, understand the principle and support the policy of international free trade. This is part of what today they call globalization. It's an old name, going back to Adam Smith. It's a better name. International free trade. Free trade simply means that individuals and companies in one country can trade with individuals and companies in other countries without barriers and taxes imposed by the respective governments. Morally, it is the right of every individual to engage in voluntary trade with any other individual that he chooses. So long as men do not engage in criminal acts, i.e. as long as they do not initiate force or fraud against others, governments must respect and protect their right of voluntary trade. For example, just as American customers are free to purchase as many domestic automobiles as they choose, so they should be free to buy as many Japanese cars as they please. That Japanese manufacturers are generally of a different nationality, ethnic group, and or race than American customers is irrelevant. International free trade is simply the principle of individual rights applied to economic relationships across national boundaries. I like that definition, so I'll repeat it. International free trade is simply the principle of individual rights applied to economic relationships across national boundaries. If an American individual believes that he should buy American out of loyalty to the United States, that is his right as an individual consumer, although it shows egregious ignorance of basic economic principles. But he should not vote for tariffs and trade barriers that make it more expensive or even impossible for other Americans to buy imported goods. The essence of America is individual rights. This principle includes the right of individuals to trade freely with other individuals, both at home and abroad. Restricting free trade is violating the right of men to trade freely with individuals of other nations. And this is what is truly un-American. Economically, the results of free trade are mutually increased prosperity. In his great work, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, published in 1776, Smith understood the basic principles of economics 230 years ago better than the overwhelming bulk of people do today, including politicians and policymakers. In the Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith provided the economic argument in favor of free trade. Quote, "In every country, it always is and must be the interest of the great body of the people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest." You don't have to be a genius to figure that out, right? In any country, it's always in the best interest of people to buy what they want from the people who sell it cheapest. So if people of nation X manufacture widgets less expensively than do the people of nation Y, then it is to the interest of the citizens of nation Y to purchase the foreign-made widget. If the Americans, for example, manufacture software less expensively than do the South Koreans, then the frugal policy for the Koreans is to purchase American software. Smith points out every country has specific natural advantages in terms of mineral resources, rivers and streams, fertile lands, location, climate, etc., that gives them a competitive advantage over other lands in the production of various commodities. France, for example, Smith points out, has the climate and terrain enabling its inhabitants to produce high-quality wine at relatively low cost. Now, Adam Smith, a Scot, pointed out that the Scots, too, could produce excellent wines if they desired to. If they so hated the French, they didn't want to buy from the French, that they could produce excellent wines, too. But given Scotland's colder climate, the production of superb Scottish wine would require the allocation of so much time, labor, and resources that the resulting product would be prohibitively expensive. It was far cheaper and wiser for the Scots to produce the goods regarding whose manufacture they held the natural advantage and to trade with the French, for one. There is a division of labor involved. The road to prosperity is for individuals and countries to produce what each excels at and to then trade peacefully with men all over the globe for the other goods that they desire. A further advantage of free trade, as noted, is that by promoting cooperation and mutually beneficial relations between countries, free trade tends to reduce tensions and national rivalries and to function as a spur to peace. Tariffs and trade barriers, on the other hand, increase mutual suspicions and antagonisms, and to the effect that economic issues lead to warfare. Such tariffs and trade barriers, of course, result in strained relations between countries and towards the greater possibility of war. Now, second point. We, the free and the wealthy of the capitalist world, or the semi-capitalist world, must stand up and proudly proclaim the moral, political, and economic superiority of our system to that of the blood-drenched statist regimes around the globe. We must boldly announce that it is only by enacting in their own countries the principle of individual rights, limited government, political economic freedom, and capitalism that the oppressed and destitute peoples of the world will achieve freedom and affluence. In this regard, the Ayn Rand Institute published an op-ed essay by a citizen of Zimbabwe, a nation suffering under the yoke of the Marxist tyrant Robert Mugabe. The writer, Stephen Tennant, describes numerous crimes committed by Mugabe's regime, the ongoing beatings, torture, rape, and murder of thousands of Zimbabwean citizens under the dictator's orders. He points out that today, because of the regime's theft of thousands of farms from productive farms, nearly 8 million Zimbabweans face starvation. Not to mention the inflation rate in that country is what, 1,000,000% or something? The destitution is just, it's not funny. The destitution is just rampant.